While we wait for Disha to come in,
Yeah,
uh, Eknoor, could we hear a bit about your journey at IIT Bombay and beyond?
sure. Of course, I'd be happy to start that off. Firstly, hello to everybody who's joined on a Sunday afternoon. ठीक है, college में you do get a time on Sunday afternoons and Monday, Tuesday पता नहीं चलता. But I'm really excited for today, guys, because this is my first time speaking to the IIT Bombay crowd on the other side of the table, and I think I should introduce myself for people who don't know me. I'm Eknoor Singh. I graduated in 2024 as a mechanical engineer, but I'm doing everything now, which is not mechanical engineering. I am a full-time associate consultant at Bain and Company. I've been with Bain for 8 months now because we had a slightly delayed joining. Apart from that, I create content regularly on social media channels, which ranges from college life, getting into IITs, and also a little bit on my life today as a consultant slash I create travel vlogs, etc. That's what I do as a hobby. I love to do that. Apart from that, I spend my time. I try to do gym as much as I can. I love hanging out with people, talking to new people, traveling places, etc. So that's about me. My journey at IIT was a very weird kind of a start. Honestly, I had no idea I'd end up in consulting. I'd end up what I am doing now because I entered IIT with the thought कि मैं तो tech में ही जाने वाला हूँ. I'm gonna go do coding, Google, Apple, Microsoft, stuff like that. And I actually, my journey started in that sphere. So I interned in a few firms, which were tech firms. I did the traditional coding internships, a few tasks, projects here and there. But I soon realized, that's perhaps not what is suiting best to my capabilities. And मुझे मतलब मजा नहीं आ रहा उसमें. So that's when I explored the domain of blockchain first. So blockchain also, I entered that domain as a tech person. So I was an R&D person there. Then I shifted to coding, core coding there. And that is where I actually had the first opportunity to work in a non-tech space. So from that coding journey, I shifted very soon to the business affairs of that startup and working in tandem with the founders, co-founders, with them working on their pitches, business pitches with investors, etc. And I understood that yeah, this is something I'd love to do. This is something which is more hands-on. This is more team-driven, approach-driven, and the business aspect of affairs. I think usme meko maza aaya, and that's why I thought that okay, maybe this is something I'd love doing more. So I'd oh, we have Disha here. Hi, Disha. Uh,
Hello. Yeah, am I visible now? Sorry to interrupt you in between.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Ignore. Please continue.
Cool. I'll just continue with the journey. So yeah, so I discovered that non-tech side of affairs sometime just before that internship season, that second year summer, right? Jab you have to come and start making resumes and all, exactly where you are right now. And I was in no mood to sit for internships, but it was like 2 days, 3 days left for the internship, resume submission, etc. And my senior, a good senior of mine, उन्होंने बोला कि what are you doing, you cannot just continue in blockchain, you cannot just leave IIT Bombay internships like that. So that's when I first came to know about consulting. So it wasn't like a very calculated approach, it wasn't a very known approach for me. I didn't know in fact what you did in consulting, but all he told me was it's business problems that you have to solve for big executives in multi-billion dollar companies at times. And it's just fun. The problems vary day to day, and you get to work with them on a close basis and on problems with a team trying to get there. So that is how I got into consulting, and I did an internship at Bain. I understood that's something I'd love to do, hence I accepted the PPO there. Now I'm a full-time consultant, so that's my professional journey. So, yeah, I think that's what's relevant, at least here.
Hi, Disha. Could we start with this short introduction of yours?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, for everyone who's not aware about me, I'm Disha Lalwani. I also graduated from mechanical in 2024 batch, and apart from it, as all of y'all, I explored a lot of things in campus when I joined. Whatever interested me even a little bit, I tried my hands out. In my first year, I was a part of the MCC council. explored those aspects. And I was interested towards the finance side. My family has a background of finance, so I ended joining up the finance club as a convener, the undergraduate academic council. And it was an experience like interacting with new people, understanding about what lies below beyond our core tech and mechanical, especially. And thereafter, the business aspect, the financial sides, actually understanding how the people in the non-core industry, attending sessions like these myself. And I got interested in the entrepreneur and majorly the team aspect of working in a team. So I also joined the E-Cell in my third year. I was heading as the corporate relations head there. And all of it, the introductions, the conversations I had with people, different people, inclined me towards. Actually, I got to know about consulting in my third year when the Bain BCG companies came and gave their deck that time. And then talking to seniors, I understood what exactly it is. And we have more of these conversations later. So keeping it short, yeah, currently I am in DBS Bank. I'm working as an analyst there. So yeah, we can move forward.
Great. So, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today. On behalf of the Student Alumni Relations Cell IT Bombay, I'm delighted to welcome you to Ask the Alum 2025 Internship Preparation Session for Consulting. Please join me in welcoming our speakers for today. We are grateful to have them with us today to share their valuable insights on consulting and help you better prepare for your upcoming internship season. Please feel free to drop any questions you may have in the chat box. They will be taken up during the Q&A session at the end. With that, I would now like to hand over the session to the speakers. Eknoor, could you begin the session by walking us through the selection process for consulting internships?
Sure. And on that point on Q&A, guys, let's keep it as interactive as we can. I know it's an online setup, would have loved to do it in person, but still, if you keep dropping in questions and it's relevant to whatever we're explaining here, we'd love to take them up even throughout the session. So do not hesitate to do that at all. But cool, I'll walk you through the selection process. I am more, I'm more aware about the internship selection process because I did not sit for the placements. I accepted the PPO. And I think that is what is relevant to this crowd as well. But you have it on your screens. There will be companies who will come in. They will give their pre-placement talks. And I'm not sure if that has started already or not. I don't think it has actually. But there will be companies who will be coming in. They'll be telling about themselves, their cultures, their way of working, the kind of problems they work on, the industries they work in. And I think that is a great time. That is step one, of course, here written. That is a great time to understand what company, what ethics, what work culture you're more interested in. Because trust me, if you are not aligned with what the company culture is and what the company is working in, the sectors they're working in, there is a huge difference. Even within MBB, there's a huge difference in the kind of sectors they're working in and the kind of people they work in. So, if you like working with the government sector, more related to the core Indian problem that the government is trying to solve, I think BCG is the only firm which does that. So you should choose that. If you're considering private equity, I'm in the private equity group at Bain. So private equity practice for Bain is the strongest in India. And similarly, I mean, McKinsey has its advantages, which all of these firms will tell in their company decks and their pre-placement talks. And once you have that, I'm assuming everybody who's interested in consulting and want to get in, you will be applying to all these companies once the it's called JAFs, right? When those open on the internship portal. Uh, so go for that, apply, and uske baad these companies will release their shortlists. These shortlists are, of course, based purely on your resume, and that resume is a big representation of everything you've done till now. And it is a big deal because kid you not, when you get through the first, the second step here, the short list, that is the majority part done. After that, you can just practice, and get through the interviews. And there's a very organized way of doing that. But resumes is where you have to put in effort. You have to understand what counts, what is not, and how can you put the best picture forward. So those shortlists are 100% based on your resume. And we'll talk in detail about what resumes are. I'll show you my resume which I had, and how you can capitalize. They're just examples, by the way. Of course, there will be a huge variety of resumes, and there's no one correct answer. But essentially, that's step two. So shortlists are based on that. This is the biggest filter. I mean, you'll have, of course, this varies, but you'll have like roughly 2x maybe, or 3x of what these companies are trying to take, those number of students in the shortlist. Now, again, this varies, and this is very, very dependent on the companies, firms also, but essentially that's the biggest funnel. Then you'll have buddy rounds, guys. Now, buddy rounds is like a glimpse into what your interviews are going to look like, but they're more chill, they're more fun, and you guys are lucky. Mostly all of you will have it in person. uh, I mean, of course, this is also case dependent, but we didn't have that option. We were still very close to the COVID. I think only one of my buddy sessions was offline. That was the BCG one. So I did it on calls, I did it on Google Meets, etc. But buddy rounds are, again, not only a great way to prove your mettle. I'll come to that, but it's a great way to understand about the firm from people in the firm, and they have those deeper insights into the kind of work that's going on, the kind of arts that you put in, and the kind of industries, again, that these cater to. So leverage that very, very well, because it's a great way to obviously practice your case preparation. You can fail the first few times, but what I was referring to earlier also, these buddy rounds are also evaluative. So while how much ever these companies say so, all the firms have a very evaluative kind of an angle to it. It's not the only evaluation. Of course, if you don't do well in buddy round, that doesn't mean you won't get in. But if you do well in buddy rounds, you get a green pass. So it's like an internal shortlist that they create. People call it hot list, people call it by different names, but buddy rounds are used for that. So companies also do not have a lot of time on the interview day to actually figure out who's good, who's not. So they have a kind of a rough list in mind, and it's mostly overlapping between all these firms. But if you get in through that, if you're doing well in your buddy rounds, you have a good gelling with your buddy, that is a great way to get into that hot list. और उस hot list के बाद honestly मतलब life काफी sorted होती है on the day of the internship, unless you mess up really bad, which can also happen. That's completely fine. It's not the end of the world. But just that for your knowledge is very, very important point about buddy rounds. But like I said, leverage them also for your own benefit, understanding about the person, having a good rapport with the buddy.
Playing from
Sorry.
NDLX.
And yeah, I mean,
What should I add?
sorry. You should do your case prep, and you should try to get tips from how to from your buddy on how to perform on the day. I hope that makes sense. I don't see a lot of questions, though, even though मैं बोल रहा हूँ, guys. Please
What
feel.
should I add?
I don't know why Alexa is doing that. Sorry. Just switch it off.
Something went wrong.
Yeah. So again, guys, please, if you have any questions यहाँ पे about this process also, feel free to drop it in your Q&A. You have a typical day one where you get up at 8 a.m. or whatever time you have the interview, you go for the interview, and you'll have senior management, leadership team from these consulting firms who will come in and who will do a simple case prep. They might not. I'll talk about that again later. But that's essentially the selection process which I've walked you through. And one by one, Disha and I will walk through it and take you into deeper insights that can, help you in your journey.
Great. I think that covered everything. Disha, do you have anything to add on to this?
No, I think it covers. We can go to the interview experience and then maybe talk a little more to give them about the day one feel.
Sure. Moving on to one of the most important things students need for their interviews and case prep are the resources. Disha, could you walk us through what you use for your own preparation and the resources you recommend for the students?
Sure. So to start with, once like as when we are in third year, we do not in second year actually, we do not have a lot of experience about what even these guesstimates and profitability, market entry, the multiple case types that we see. So the best thing is to go to the YouTube. The videos that I had referred to was the CIC videos. They are 1 hour, I think, approx video, and it covers 1 hour each for like profitability and guesstimates and all of these four: market entry and unconventional. These four are good to start with. And if you really have more enthusiasm and you want to try out more, then Victor Cheng in these videos I've heard are good. You can check out. But I think CIC covers this good enough to get on the hand of the cases. Thereafter, the case books that I had referred in my third year prep was the CIC book itself. They have like good starting of cases. You can do it with your peers, friends who have shortlists and who are also prepping for consult. And so it is done in a format of interviewer and interviewee format. So as an interviewer, if I'm with Eknoor, I'll be conducting and he'll be responding like as a consult proxy interview. And similarly, I'll be noting down the feedbacks that I have, the points that I think he could have added on the way he's carrying himself, the way he's responding, and all of it. And similarly, maybe the other way around. So this helps both the people to improve, and you will also get a perspective of improving along with them, even a perspective of how they would have solved it. So to start with, you could do it with peers. There are two aspects. Like people do it either they create a craze group of 3 to 4 friends and they do it along among themselves only. And there are few people who also do not want to stick to 3 to 4 people itself, and they like do one-on-one with each random everyone to know how everyone's doing and get different perspectives. So you can do a mix of it. Start with 3 to 4 people, and then once you have a little hang of things, try out with other people who are in your peer group. And in the last few like in the once you've done good number of cases, you can also try doing it with your seniors who are in third or fourth year, who have done who are like interned with these companies and or have done consult prep. And thereafter you will have your buddy rounds. This will also do cases, and then you can also reach out to alums if you want to prep more. So this is an overall aspect. But I believe this once the shortlist, this is like the one of the most crucial, and it can make or change the game for anyone. And it is beyond your resume, beyond whatever you have done until now. If you can do this prep on an organized manner with consistency and actually improving. So after every case you do, you need to analyze it and to realize what all points you missed out, and everything needs to improve in the next one. Just doing a good number of cases when quantity is not that important, but the quality of the cases and how you improve after each case is more important. So keep that in mind. And any doubts, if you all have anything, or you can like feel free to. I don't think so you would have maybe a lot of them currently, because I doubt anybody would have started prepping for it. But yeah, anything you would like to add, Eknoor, in this?
Yeah, I think you covered most of it, Disha. I mean, if I had to add something, I'd say, these are the three resources for sure. But, like you were also saying, it's most essential to know that point number three is the way to go for case prep, because videos are like a very one way sort of a picture, and it's not giving you feedback on how you are performing. It's just, and case books also for that matter. It's a general representation, not knowing what you are doing. And again, this is not relevant maybe because you've not started doing case preps, but just remember from this, keep your third point, and that is the most important, where you should do with as many people as you can. Go to seniors, ring them up, go to alums, ring them up, go to your peers who are preparing for it. You will create case groups, and that is going to make or break the situation for you. So that's the most important out of these three, is what I want to say.
Moving on to one of the most important part of the selection process, your resume. The resume deadline for the third year students will be coming up soon. So, Eknoor, could you walk us through what you think a good resume should look like?
For sure. Yeah. Uh, okay, I think I've already explained what the importance and purpose of the resume is, but to touch it again briefly, it is going to be the biggest filtration process in consulting, and it is a representation of everything you've done. However good you might be, the consulting firms do not know that. And your resumes are going to go to consultants and people in the firm to judge your entire life based on that one piece of paper. So that's the reality of it, actually. And if you want to get in, it's important to put in effort into your resume, and understanding that A, you're covering everything that you've done, and B, you're covering it in a way that brings out the best picture in you, and shows sort of peaks. I'll tell you what peaks are and how that is calculated, etc. But you have to keep that sort of structure in mind as to how to frame your resume so that your peaks stand out. There is a typical one-page resume for consulting roles. I think everybody knows that. tech typically has a longer resume. Even those guys are shifting to one-page resumes a lot nowadays. But still, for people who are interested in consulting, there's just one page to prove your metal, and that's it. You can use LaTeX, you can use Word. I personally used Word because like LaTeX is a lot of coding, which consulting does not want anyways. So it's okay to use Word also at times. But I think it looks good. LaTeX wala thoda sa the format looks good, but it doesn't matter honestly. It's the content that speaks more about it. So I think we can go to the next slide. Yeah, the components. Yeah. So components, I think this is suggestive. This can change a little bit, but I'm sure these are self-explanatory, guys. I'll just walk you through what these mean. Scholastic achievements are anything on academics, anything that you've done as part of your curriculum. We will get to the sample resume later. I'll just quickly walk you through all of these. Professional experiences, any internships, any kind of industry work that you've done. Positions of responsibility, I'm sure everybody knows what they are by now, and we'll talk about what to include, what to not. Technical skills might not be too relevant here for consulting, but if you have a good, strong technical skill background, you want that to count as a peak, then may that be. And extracurriculars are anything apart from all these, anything that you want your resume to talk about, you should include in this. We can go to the sample resume, and I'll tell you what peaks are now, because that's the most important concept when it comes to consulting resumes. And full disclosure, this is not my, of course, you see Bain and Company there, so it's definitely not my internship resume. This is a resume I made, I think. So our PPO was getting delayed. I think I made it for the placements. So this has Bain, I think, there, hence, and I'll walk you through exactly what was different in my internship resume. But coming back to peaks, guys, peak is anything that is your strong point. So out of all the things that we mentioned just before this on the previous page, these headers that you see in dark blue here as well, this is a section of your resume. And for any section to stand out as a peak, you need to prove that you're better than your peers in your batch and you've done something additional, something extra. और वो तभी तुम्हारा peak बन सकता है. It should stand out that if Disha has written these 2 points under work experience, then Disha is 100% better than her peers, and this should count as a peak for Disha. So that's one peak there. If you're writing entrepreneurial work, if you've done entrepreneurship, if you've worked in anything in under entrepreneurship. Now you see, for an example, entrepreneurial work is not a standard kind of a topic. We didn't see it on the previous page, and that is completely fine. For me, one of them, by the way, was international exposures, which you see under extracurriculars now. But I wanted that to stand out as a peak for me. And why was that? Because not a lot of people go for semester exchanges, right? It's a very, very handpicked kind of a crowd. And apart from that, there was also this blockchain workshop that I had been selected for from India. So those 2 points made international exposure a peak for me. So international exposure was also one of the peaks that I had written. Uh, Scholastic achievements was one of the peaks I was going for. So you should not limit yourself to the number of peaks. I mean, of course, the space in the resume is going to limit it for you. But you have to handpick, that you should not just write one experience under each header and expect that resume to shine. It's good to have a lot of domains. It's good to have a lot of things in your kitty, but not on your resume. Your resume should talk about your strengths. So here, for an example, and it's not about the size of the content here. I have used size in proportion to what I've done, but that's also a very, very calculated kind of a move, and you should be very sure that it's actually making that happen. For example, work experience here, if I've written Bain and Company, if I've written a core team member at an anti-fragile derivatives decentralized derivatives platform, a blockchain platform, and you see right there at the beginning, the first line that I've written, it's among the top 3 out of 400 plus. So I was selected in the entire batch, and there were computer science students competing for it, etc. So that's when they know, this is something that's making him stand out under WorkX. Bain is of course there. I think I wrote something else, whatever there was back then, and there was another consulting. So the only consulting experience I had before this was through Share. I think it's called Share. We still have Share at IIT Bombay. So through Share, I was part of this project that we did, and there I was acting as a strategy consultant. So I thought, that I should definitely include. So if I have like 3 work experiences, 2 work experiences, and within that also, like I said, number does not matter. But within that, if you show metal, if you've taken up responsibility, if you've shown coachability, problem solving skills, stuff like that, you can consider that to be a peak for you. Okay? So it's again not about the size of the content, but to show that whatever you've written in it, that is different. That is making you stand out. And there is, like I said, no one correct answer, or you don't have to necessarily follow this. In fact, this is not even my internship resume, so this won't get you through. But so for example, scholastic achievements, again, there are just 5 points here, but I've tried to pick up points that are, not everybody has them. And for an example, POR might not be a strength for me. It might not be a peak because ISMP and DAM, it's part of a 143 member team. Okay? You're doing good. Of course, I'm not trying to belittle any POR here. But for example, Disha was a manager at eSell. That is the kind of stuff that sells. That is a peak because not a lot of people become that. So that is 100% peak. Meri peak, मैं overall manager Google at IIT भी था, which was actually Google's collaboration with IIT Bombay. It started. I was the founding manager of sorts, and it ended with me. So I didn't do a very good job, clearly. But still, I mean, when I got, so you actually get like a resume feedback of sorts when Bain sends you gifts, and they have like 2 3 pointers written about what they liked about you, and that's essentially what they liked in your resume. And to my surprise, this Google thing actually sells, because that was the point number one. We liked your role as the founding manager of Google at IITB. And that's the beauty of resumes. You don't know what somebody will find impressive, right? You have to explore what you've done. Here, I had still included Google, still, even though I knew, it's not a big internship, and sorry, POR, and it's not a recognized POR. But, if it's being read like that, he set up a community in IIT Bombay. It's a Google's official collaboration, tech collaboration with IIT Bombay. He's among the 2 students among hundreds who applied for this POR. Then it actually sells. ठीक है. So again, now nobody knows कि मेरी कितनी peaks count हुई या किसी की भी कितनी peaks count हो रही हैं. But whatever the point again here being, whatever you're putting there, try to think about every point that you're putting. And it's fine, guys. I mean, I completely understand being just 2 years into IIT Bombay. It's not possible to have a lot of things under all domains, but I'm sure all of you have your peaks. So, for example, for somebody in extracurriculars, my friend at IM, he's now sitting for consulting interviews, and we were just trying to identify his peaks. He's done extremely well in chess, for example, in the past many years that he's been at it. So that for him under extracurriculars is going to be a peak 100%. And trust me, I mean, it's not like, it's sports or it's maybe extracurricular, so it might not be too relevant. Work experience is more relevant, or entrepreneurship, POR is more relevant. Consulting firms have gone way past that. There was a time when if you have a big POR, you're into the consulting shortlist, but that's no longer true. That is 100% changing, and that is because there is a host of options that people have today, and consulting firms are also trying to take in a more diverse kind of a crowd. So whatever your peak is, whatever, एक चीज जो दिमाग में आती है कि यार इसमें मैं बेस्ट हूँ, ये मेरा बेस्ट है, and here are the points to prove that. 100% have it in your consulting resume in whatever header you want. There's no need to have these fixed headers. Some of them, of course, work very well, like scholastic achievements is one header that you have, you can have, you should have. I mean, if it's one of your peaks, but those you should word exactly like this. Like positions of responsibility should be worded like that, because another thing about resumes is that these will go through machines and artificial intelligence models, etc. And the words like positions of responsibility, words that are brand names, for example, Google here, Bain here, and stuff like, I don't know, maybe national winner, international winner, words like that, as many hits as they get, the software pushes it up. So the first round of filtering in some of these firms actually happens through such softwares. Now, this is completely my personal opinion. I do not know what happens actually, and nobody knows that. It's something nobody can reveal, honestly. But your resumes do go through these models, and for that, you should also keep in mind you're putting in those brand names, you're putting in what really matters, what stands out, and it counts as your peak. Of course, I'm happy to take up any questions that you guys have specific to any of these uh, options, because I realize that this is not a very typical kind of a resume, because I've also written about my startup, which was not existent when I was sitting for internships. But again, YouTube is one point that I made a peak 100%, because that is something that I have been doing for the longest of time, and mujhe tha ki, I have built it to this level, and I think people identify me through that. And I'll come to this when I talk about my case interview. So I was like, YouTube to 100% has to go there, and it was much bigger than this. Ye to placement resume, and I had to add SPZ, etc. But YouTube was a big point and a big. I think I added it under entrepreneurial work only back then, so that made a peak for sure. So I think hopefully that made sense. I think I spoke a lot, but that was all the thoughts that I had on resumes. I mean, I might have more thoughts, recurring thoughts, which will amplify when you guys send in questions, and I'm answering them side by side also, and we'll talk about these together at the end also. But yeah, those are general tips that I have for you guys. Anything that Disha would like to add? Please, Disha, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So just to summarize what Eknoor said, like showing, because everybody here is an IT Bombay, there'll be like maybe 1,200, 1,300 people, and 80%, 60% of them will apply for the day one form. So for them
Mm.
to realize that beyond JE, why are you better in the last, what are you better than your peers, or something that makes you highlight. So definitely one is your things that are quantitative shine out more because they're easy to evaluate and compare. So like CPI, or if you've done a minor, and if you have a good CPI in a minor, you can put that in. If you have AAs or APs in your scholastic or courses that you've done. So these are easy to quantify. The people who are filtering there are also alums or with an IIT experience, and they understand these terms and the recognition of them. Similarly, even the common ones like professional experience, I don't think so. A lot of people have on their resumes. I'm not sure if now people have started doing a lot of second year interns, but if you have definitely something like a remote or in person, you can put in there. And projects, I think a lot of people do because that's what we have an option to in the first year. So there also definitely these are alums and people who have experience, so they realize the difference of the recognition or the kind of efforts or filtration that goes into turning up out of a project. So you can put in their brand names do add value, no doubt, because even if I just have a like a minute to see a resume, the blue headers and the brand names is what will catch my eye first, and thereafter all of these. So you can keep it according to what you think, but try putting in the peaks. As far as consult resume is concerned, peaks create a lot of value. And because as Eknoor and I'm highlighting, resume filtering is very important, because after like 10% of the people, like I think 12 or 13 people get 15 people get filtered after a resume filtering. So try putting in correctly everything you've done there and showing in more than a lot of quantity, but put in the quality. Like if I've done scholastic, I know I'm the best at it. If I've done extracurriculars, I wouldn't want to put 5, 7 like dance skill. Good to show exposure, but if I show I'm just showing a portion of dance and then I show I did an international level, national level, or something that's easy to recognize. If there is no certification or easy recognition, then you can put in like performed in front of an audience of this huge stature and stage level. So showing it, I'm doing X thing, but I'm the best at X. I'm not doing 10 things, but I'm doing 3 things, but I'm the best at that. That's what is most important. Yeah. Also, just to add a most important thing, like people do fake things in resume, people do exaggerate fluff, but I don't think so. It shows on the day of your interview. You might land there in the interview, but I've I've heard of a lot of peer stories that they've had an amazing case, but one thing in their interview, and it was from the resume, and it was evident that they haven't done that internship or they've over exaggerated it or fluffed it, it gets caught and it proves the worst kind of thing. Maybe it wasn't even necessary for you to get shortlisted, but it can be a breaking point at the interview day. So try keeping that. Do not fluff a lot. That is because it's evident people are there who are interviewing you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Please
I
go
think
ahead.
I'll add to that a little. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were done.
No, no, please add. Yeah.
That's a very true point, Disha, I think, and it's of prime importance to highlight it here because you're supposed to back your resume in your interview as well. The partner might come in and he might only talk about your resume and only dive deeper into that. And if it's very easy to catch on if you've not done work and you've written it there. They've interviewed hundreds of people now, and they know when you're lying. So no need to risk that, honestly. If it's not happening basis what you have, that's the reality, and that's completely fine. There are hundreds of domains, hundreds of paths in lives, and consulting is not the end of the world, like I said. Uh, so that is very important. Sorry, you had any more thoughts, Disha? Please go ahead.
Look, saying that obviously there are things like we would have done, but we
Mm,
exaggerated. I've participated here, but I'm exaggerating it. I learned so much of lot more. So
mm,
okay, to a point, but till the point you're aware about all the words you've written in your resume on the main interview day. Even if maybe you wouldn't have learned all of those on the day, but you've learned it enough while you're prepping for an interview. And any word that he picks up and he dives deep, if you know the meaning of, I've written forest, random forest algorithm. Do I know what exactly it is? What are the inputs? What are the things? Then it's fine if I'm until the point I'm able to explain. So basically दृश्य में अगर उस टाइम भी नहीं किया था बट अगले 3 दिन में तुमने अच्छी से कर लिया and तुम दिखा सकते हो then good,
mm,
but don't just put anything that you do not know the meaning of in your resume.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these general tips, I think we're not including here. Like if you go back to my resume once, Shrishti. So if you just notice, there are general rules. You start with action words. So all of these sentences start with recruited, received, acquired, selected, managed, stuff like that. They're very general resume rules that your seniors, your friends, everybody will tell you, and there will be a lot of sessions. So that's why I'm not going into that right now. Those kind of things, of course, please be very sure about, and you can see it everywhere, and you should follow those. You should add as many numbers as you can. जितना content numerically दिख रहा है, your resume stands out. I mean, just for example, look at this resume. I can see a lot of numbers here, and there are random numbers also at times. For example, trained for over 100 hours to elevate proficiency. Somebody might just write, I just trained on these parameters. This point is better than that because you've shown how much you've trained, and it's a good number, so everybody knows. Just try to put in numbers wherever you can. It looks very good on your resume, and consultants like numbers. All people in non-tech, in fact, do like numbers. So they will definitely like your resume wherever you can put that. Another thing I'd like to say, like we said, don't make fake information. But if you just see the scholastic achievements, point number one, that's an example of smart playing your achievements. It says currently holding the distinguished AP and AA grades awarded for exceptional academic performance in 18 plus courses. अब AP मुझे एक में ही मिला था. But I wrote AP and AA and 18 plus courses because 17 were AA in that. So that's an example, and that is completely okay. That is not something where you're fluffing, bluffing, and nobody will even get into that. But they can always think कि अच्छा शायद इसको मिले होंगे यार, 3-4 AA भी मिले होंगे and AP भी मिले होंगे, and AP is of course like people in the IIT Bombay system will only most likely in all these firms assess your resume, so they know the value and importance of an AP. So trying to be smart about how you're presenting, like I was saying initially, also is very important to bring that out as a peak in your resumes. So that is completely fine. Do not fake, do not lie. If I had not got a single AP, then I wouldn't have written it at all because that's foolish. I mean, everybody can see that through your grades, etc., and that can be verified. So don't do that. Yeah.
So yeah, we can go back maybe a slide back, do's and don'ts. Yeah. So this do's and don'ts majorly highlight the structure of a point, which Eknoor also touched upon, but I believe is one of the most important thing about how you present. You know what you're going to present, but how you present makes a huge difference in when someone's reading. So we have the title, the blue header, the dark blue header. It generally have a brand name or the company you're working at or what it is. So even if I do not have the time to glance through the entire resume, but I know the titles and I can make, okay, he's done something at Bain or he's done something at BCG. Okay, he had a consulting experience. I've done a PM role at a startup. He's got some product management and a startup experience. So it's easier to catch there. Then there is a italics line most people put in the resume below the title. It is majorly to highlight a great achievement that you have done there, makes you stand out. One of the best things that you've done, like an LOR or a recommendation or something. And even if it's a firm, like if it's startup or something, which is not pretty evident from the name, the capacity, the heights of the startup of the context it is in. So you can put a one line contextual information showing the how important or how spread across or what is the funding or the number of people or like X achievement of the startup, so it shows the brand value of the company you worked in. Then there are pointers below it. You can have like 2 to 4 sub points depending on how important it is. And if it's like a lot of work that you've done, you want to highlight, then you put more, or 2 to 3 points are decently good. And one thing which is like particularly highlighted in all of the IIT Bombay, especially reviews, and you do, nobody likes the white space. It just feels like khali hai resume. So try avoiding those white spaces. Put in some, put it on ChatGPT and tell it to frame it in 10 to 15 words. It'll give you not much of an effort, but do not put the white spaces. Like you can see in this end, it's pura clearly aligned and it gives a good view. If I'm looking at the resume, it feels like wow, it looks structured in the first glance. Then I personally have a preference of like I do not like putting things in 2 lines because I think anything that you've done can be put in 1 line, or if it's very important and want to show that impact, then maybe you can have. But thinking from a perspective who someone who has like a minute or two to go through a resume, you yourself wouldn't want to like read the entire thing. So highlight the most important and get the attention there. My personal favorite, like to frame a resume structure, like any of these lines, coming to these particular lines, is using the star format, the situation, target, action, and result. So I want to get them realize that what was the situation, why it was that big of a problem, it was affecting so many people, it had uh, as Eknoor also mentioned, quantitative data is more easier to recognize, realize the importance rather than putting in adjectives. A huge crowd, but I won't know the huge is 100 or 1,000 or 1 lakh. So keeping quantitative data is easier to catch and to understand the depth of it. And what was your target? You wanted to achieve X, and what was the result? What did you do, and what was the result? What did you do? Like maybe a skill that you learned, what source that you used, and what was the learning, and then the result. Results are best to be quantified because adjectives I do not believe are easier to conceive and understand what it is. So its results are best quantified. And all of these, I personally like to start my statement with the result because even if someone was not gone to the end of the statement, I might just read the startings. So they would know कि okay, इसने impact create किया है. Whatever you do, how you do, consulting firms like to see impact. So you keep the impact in the start so it grabs the attention more. And as also like the adjectives, the first keyword action verb people keep, they try like to start it with an action verb. My bad, not adjectives, yeah, it's action verb. And we have ChatGPT, you have a great repository online, and you just maybe keeping like 30-35 points at max. So do not repeat the action verbs because developed, received, developed बहुत same लगता है. बहुत सारे उसके you will easily get synonyms. Use those. Use ones that show leadership. If you're showing in a PR, show leadership like spearheaded. If you want to show that you've started something from scratch, like a founder experience, a conceptualized, and these ones, and we have multiple resources online, but frame it well. It shows they've put in effort and you've not just taken a casual approach. And then within the box, when it comes to organizing, definitely like a recent or the most impactful ones, the most important ones, you will keep it front. So even if someone is not reading till the last fourth point, can see the top two, what do you want to actually highlight. So yeah, anybody has any doubts here? Because I think resume deadlines are going to come up, and resume is going to be the most important thing, not just for consulting, but also the other internship profiles will be sitting for. So, and I would suggest like if you all don't mind, and if you all are presentable enough, you can turn on your cameras, and if Srishti has given you all access, so it'll just give us a more feeler about. I'm not just talking to Eknoor and Srishti. Yeah, if
Yeah, I think
possible.
they don't have access right now, but if we can
Mm.
team, that'll be great, of course.
Yeah, I think I'll do that. I'll give the access.
Sure. And of course, guys, be professional, etc. You don't want to do stuff on college events on camera because we've had a fair share of that during our time.
So we can move ahead, Srishti. So I'll just rush through like the important things in these points. We do bold, but bold the purpose is to highlight कि अगर इतने सारी चीजें कौन सी 3 चीजें मेरा नजर जाना चाहिए. तो if you bold a lot of things, it kills the purpose of using the bold action in the first place. So do not bold more than 2 words. I preferably do not like bolding words because I bold like numbers and those things. So it doesn't put a lot of bold, but it shows you have highlighted something. and you can bold in words which are actually important, some like a skill that you want to highlight, or a resource that you've used, or like a library or something that you've used that you want to really highlight, so you can put in there, or something that shows a different aspect. So do not bold a lot, but bold only that's actually important and is worthwhile bolding. Also, looking at the common mistakes like explaining too much, or putting a lot of adjectives, fluffing, and all of it. It doesn't show hype. People just skip through it. People just see impact कहाँ है, क्या किया, क्या चीज सीखा. तो बहुत सारा इंग्लिश डालने का कोई जरूरत नहीं है in my opinion, and you don't even have the space to put so much. So again, like, try fitting it in, and ChatGPT here is I think the most helpful thing. All of these AI. Now you don't have to think about the same statement and what you do and try putting in 10 words. Just put in the content and it'll give you it in like 10 to 13 words, including everything that you want. And yeah, avoid repeating action verbs. Do like focus on what actually matters and this so on. You can go ahead if yeah. Hmm. So looking at these segments, like one of the most common ones, I think in our second year resume are PORs, projects, extracurriculars. The most of us have experienced too. And if you have a POR, if you have done something, this was actually like broken into segments in my third year resume. So it's fine if you do not want to break it down now. But if you have a lot of things, you can break it down to top three skills that you learned, or new initiatives, or negotiation, or something that you want to show there. Even within extracurriculars, I really would, I preferably like that box format where you can break down and it's easy to catch. And here I've kept five things, but if looking back, if I would want to highlight, I would maybe create a like a bigger box and just highlight one important thing with multiple, like, not just not just put culturals, but put dance and put like everything I've done in dance there and to highlight, or some sports, everything I've done in squash and to highlight there. So it adds as a peak, and it's a very good showcase of a peak. So yeah, and yeah, one more thing I would like to highlight here. Yeah, we can go back. I'm sorry. Hmm. So I personally, I think even consulting firms, it, like the resume hygiene or how it looks in the first 10 seconds glance, it highlights that you have not just been casual about it, you've put in efforts to review, to refine it. So things like be consistent with the dates. So if you can see in an MMMYY format, there is like an, if I'm putting an apostrophe, grammatically the apostrophe and this has a space and a postage. So use all of these AI platforms, get it grammar reviewed, because that's the most easiest thing, low hanging fruit, and you can it's not that much of an effort. Keep it consistent, and if you're keeping the years, maybe you could keep it in an like chronological order, or if you want, you keep it in a priority order, like the most important first. Then the consistency with symbols. So if you're using an ampersand, or if you're writing A and D, keep it uniform. कहीं जगह रख बढ़ने के लिए A and D लिख दिया, कहीं जगह बचाने के लिए ampersand लिख दिया. Avoid that. Keep it uniform. Stick to one. Even with numbers, if you're writing MN for million, keep it to that abbreviation. If you're writing million, the entire thing, or if you're just writing single M, keep it uniform. Because it's the most easiest thing to catch in a resume. And even like with rupees or dollar, I'm writing few numbers in rupees and I'm writing few in dollar, keep it in uniform, like lakh or using k, thousands. Then even keep that consistent style with things like new numbers that we're putting in. If it's like a 1 to 10, then do not put 5 plus 3 plus, keep it exact, keep it series 7 4. If it's a huge number like 80, 180, 2000, then that plus symbol creates value. I believe do not put in plus everywhere because you see it in resumes. Then grammar, uh, I personally catch one of these first things in a resume. So, and I think it adds showcase that you are important and you've given in the efforts, and it's most easy thing to review currently. You can need to maintain proper tenses if you're keeping it in a third person perspective, and get that subject verb agreement for each of these statements. Get that grammatically reviewed, and yeah, with the punctuation where you're putting a comma, the full stop, the spacing after punctuation marks, all of these are simple hygiene. The font that you're using, keep it consistent, the font type, size, the color. It's, I think this formatting is simpler in word. LaTeX, if you're using LaTeX, do not like keep the spacing and all of it consistent, and with have a good eye for it. The distance between the bold, the distance between the title, the distance between italics and the next line. So all of these inter line distances also. Then the margins, the spacing, alignment, equal spacing between these bullet points, and so on. Yeah, I think you would like to add to this any of these framework points, do's and don'ts, Eknoor?
No, I think you covered that in detail. I think we should move on to the next sections in the interest of time. You've completely covered it, I think.
Yes, sure. Let's begin with the interview tips. So I would like to ask you guys to share your interview experience and just a few brief tips that the students can keep in their minds.
Would you like to go first, Disha?
No, no, you can start. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, cool. I'll break it into two parts essentially. Or I don't know if we're coming back to it later on case interview tips, then I can do that at the end altogether. I'll just share my interview experience. How do you want to structure it?
Anything works. I think we'll do
Okay.
both of them together, case interview and experience right now. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Cool. So a general view on how my interview was. So I was in the shortlist, I was in the hot list, and you get calls for that one night before your interviews. And again, like I told you, it's the buddy process which evaluates that. And it then, of course, happened right in the morning. Now, there's a longer story to it, which I'll not get into because the placement cell also does its things. And I was put in a random room for a random firm. I was not allowed to go for Bain, where I wanted to go first. But then I eventually went for the Bain interview. That was the second interview, which my buddy got sorted, etc. So your runner got sorted. I'll not come to what runners are, etc. Closer to it, I think you'll get to know on your own. But my interview essentially was with a partner at Bain, and he started off with my resume. He was, of course, I mean, these partners are also briefed about the buddy processes and our feedback on that. So he knew, I had done a fair share of cases and they went well. So that's why I think he came to the resume. He asked me a little bit on my experience, my professional experiences. That was like 5 minutes of it, and then he moved on to YouTube, which I was referring to earlier. He just starting having a very candid conversation on YouTube in general, and how do I see the social media industry, and why did I get into it. So more than a business aspect of it, he was talking about it very personally, and he wanted to just understand how much passion I put into it. Is my reading of it, of course, it can be different, but he was just talking, and it's weird, you go in with the expectation that you'll go solve a case, which is 90% of interviews. But again, every case and every person who's taking the interview is a human at the end, and they have their own preferences of doing things, and there is no limitation to the way they can assess you. So my in fact, that's the only consulting interview I've ever sat in. So that one, the one which I was put to forcefully before, was a traditional case interview. But yeah, this Bain interview, he was talking about the YouTube, and then he opens up a random vlog that I had put one night back, and he's seeing the vlog in the case interview, and he's asking me about my friends, who's this, how's this fest. I think it was a fest vlog only. It might be ESL only, by the way. But one of these vlogs he started watching, and he was like, okay, do you want to do a case or are we good? And I was like, whatever you prefer, I'm completely okay with it. So he's like, okay, let's do one. And he gave me a very simplistic kind of a case. I think the standards you'll have, we'll do one, I think, if time allows. But uh, he started off with a problem statement, and he's like, how you go about it. And I shared my approach for that, of course, asking all those relevant questions that you're supposed to ask to show your structured thinking. And he was like, okay, completely fine, let's not do the case. We'd love to offer you a role, blah, blah. So it was actually, the entirety of this was 15 minutes max. In fact, it could be, yeah, it was around that. So that's how unique each case experience and case interviews can be. And again, I'm sorry, but this does not contribute at all to understanding how case interviews are at consulting firms. But that's the ground reality, and that's how it can be for you guys also. And that was actually the story with that partner, for whoever was going in his panel, whoever was being interviewed by him, because that's his style. That's how, now I work with him in projects. The current project I'm working on, he's a partner for that project. So I know that's how he is. He likes it differently, and he has his own ways of assessing things. So that is completely possible, and I'm sure Disha can walk you through the more structured answer on how cases are and what's the good tips for that if she had a case experience in her interview. But that was my case experience, and I think Disha, you can go ahead with your in case interview. Your story, then we can get to the more structured side of it and hacks
Yeah.
for cases. Yeah.
Like generally, what we prepped for is there are three aspects. One is that if I talk about mine, I do not recall entirely of it, but as far as I remember, they might start with a general questions on you, who are you, or like something on your resume they might touch, or what did you do there, anything like what interests them, and those conversations could lead to a guesstimate maybe, or a case related to that. So if you have highlighted like your passion is badminton, they can give you a case on how many shuttlecocks are produced in a year, or how many people play badminton, or any of this. If you've written football, how many jerseys are sold in a year. Any of these guesstimates or cases can come. So what they expect is, rather than giving something like entirely what you don't have context on, they can build on it, and this once doing this case, they'll also get an idea about how much you were true to your resume too. So one of these personal questions, the resume questions, and I can recall two cases that I was there. And one was like how many crows. It can be unconventional, random guesstimate, like how many crows are there in the sky. So you can need to ask perfect prelim, like more detailed questions. Is it like which region? Is it like a seasonal migration phase? They just want to see how creative you can be with it, and uh, what is the structure. They do not want the exact answer as you would have heard about consulting interviews. They want to see the structure, the approach, the different multiple things that you can think of. So all of it. And one was like, as far as I recall, IPL season was going on, I think, that time. So I want to purchase, I'm like Hotstar, and I want to purchase the IPL streaming rights. What should be the price that I should quote, and it will be. So you can ask like preliminary questions. What is the purpose? Do I want to break even? Do I want to acquire new customers? Do I want to extract profit out of it? And all of this. So they want to see your approach. So for me, both of them came as unconventional, because I later got to know that the second one could be a pricing case, but I hadn't done pricing by then. But they just want to see your structure. I think the second one was in a BCG interview, and then they will might ask you something like, why BCG? What do you heard about? Do you have any questions for us? So the third, like the last part, do you have any questions? I think it also plays an aspect like what you've done the research for the firm, and how much you know, how much of a conscious decision consulting is for you, and if you're actually sure about like the kind of questions that you ask are those generic questions that a lot of people have, this set of three questions ki, what do you do, how is your experience. It's fine, it's just how you frame it, and how it shows your passion and your actual curiosity to know the answer to it. You could ask like a secondary question. So I think this is like a major structure. Like, do you want to add something to like a defined structure?
Yeah, I think again, I think you covered the most important bit, which is that a lot of these can be unconventional, a lot of these can actually be unstructured, because trust me, not a lot of these partners and the senior management who take these interviews are in close touch with the books that you read or these case prep resources that you do. It's just their experience over the years, because of which they have some cases in their head, and it can be some problems that they make up on the spot, depending on, like Disha said, if you're good at badminton, the number of shuttlecocks, etc. So keep that in mind and be very, very open to not trying to force fit things into a structure that you have learned. And that is what I tell everybody who I do case interviews with, at least, that it's okay to stay away from these principles. There are a lot of principles, a lot of hacks, a lot of strategies. Like some are general, for example, being MECE, which means mutually exclusive, cumulatively exhaustive. You learn that, no need to know that right now, but stuff like that is general rules. That is okay, just to be complete in your approach, etc. But trying to force fit some structures or the way you classify things, while it may be helpful, it's not necessary to force fit things into that. It's not necessary to force fit them into the kind of case that this guy might be asking. Like Disha said, maybe it was a pricing case, but it's completely fine. She didn't know it, and she just went ahead with the problem structure, and she got into BCG. So that's the essence of it, and you don't necessarily have to be informed about. It's okay to be informed, of course. I'm not against that, but just keep them as backups. Don't be very, very non-flexible about these things. I I I think, yeah, that's my take on being structured versus unstructured, Disha.
Great. So next we had a segment planned where we would take an example case and go through it to sort of explain these cases more and identify the structure and all. So starting with the profitability case, Disha, could you walk us through the basic framework for it and then take us through the example?
Sure. So, profitability case is basically a company is again just before we dive into these frameworks, these structures that are you'll find in a lot of books, videos. Any of this is just to show like you can start studying. These are good starting points. I'm not saying do not look at frameworks and start doing cases on your own. Look at these frameworks. It teaches you how to think. It teaches you how to break down things. What could be the me see as Eknoor highlighted. How you could break down more. The deeper you could go into it. बट when you're in the interview date do not have all of this कि like यार ये तो framework में fit नहीं हो रहा अब मैं कैसे दिखाऊँ इसमें demand और supply कैसे break करूँ think what you in the context of it think of what could be the most next logical breakdown and that is and yeah just keep calm and do not it shows on your face if you get stressed just keep calm and that I think highlights most of important coming to the profitability structure a company is losing profits it is some percentage share it can the profits can be due to two aspects a revenue problem or a cost problem revenue is the money generating cost is money decreasing as you know profit is revenue minus cost so any of these breakdowns you can put it in mathematical formulas and that play there's a easier to break it more messy like you know they're exclusive and exhaustive then within the revenue what could be the multiple streams of revenue in that if it's a firm we can come down and then within the revenue streams the revenue what is revenue number of units sold into the cost per unit so that ways these are just like the one of the most basic framework and cost can be divided into fixed cost and variable cost as a mathematical structure we can go ahead you can do a case maybe that would give a quick deep dive into it.
Yeah, great. Let's just walk through this profitability case as quickly as we can. We're running a little short on time. But yeah, here is a question that we selected for all of you.
Yeah.
Let's
So
begin.
I'm not sure how attentive everyone is, but if feasible, I would like. I think it's better if you all could participate because rather than me solving it, is you'll get an idea about how it happens. So we can take something that's most relevant. A small canteen in the campus of IITB, say Aromas, as witnessed a drop in revenues. So here we are need to what is the root cause for it? Why is and the bhaiya comes up asking what's the reason why is it dropping and what can I do to solve it? So moving ahead, and I would strongly suggest if you all could turn on cameras and at least turn on your mics. If mics option is there, Srishti, so they can ask, they can speak up directly on their suggestions how they could solve it.
Yes, everyone has mic access.
So I'll give like a quick pause out of this. So first is you repeat the problem statement. If I've maybe said it as an interviewer, people like I would like to make sure I understand what the problem is. So you avoid any discrepancies, any fallouts that you identify later, and that's the worst thing to identify in a later point. You clarify that we both are on the same page. Then we move to preliminary questions. We can go to the next slide. So preliminary questions, though there might be some things that are very common. Like I know Aromas, I know Canteen. I believe I know everything. I don't want to know anything more. But it's always good to clarify. So you are thinking the problem is exactly what the other person is thinking. Sometimes they might use words which you don't know meanings. You can ask them in the preliminary questions. You can ask what's the objective. Why does the client want that? What does the client want? What are if they are saying profit is come down? What's the figures? How much? Since when? And all of this. Before diving deep into this, like I would want you all know the question. It's there on the slide also. What all are the kind of preliminary questions that you all would have in mind? Do you think are appropriate to ask here? Anyone? I can see like a few names on my slide, but anyone here who would like to pop up and ask something? Do you think makes sense here?
One question might be like, for how many years is the profits going down?
Right. So the profit figures since when, or yeah, right. It makes sense. It gives you a depth of how much of the problem is.
Yeah, so another
One,
question can be like, Is it the outlet specific issue that we are facing, or it is uh, it is common across all the outlets in the campus?
Definitely, I think this is like one of the most important questions. It gives you a depth of, is it just aromas या बाकी सब canteens का हो रहा है? It can just filter out a lot of things in your mind when you're speaking that अगर aromas का हो रहा है मतलब internal issue है, सबका हो रहा है मतलब external issue है, तो you will think from a more higher perspective about what could affect food. So, anything more? Any
A
question that you have?
clarifying
Another question
question uh, regarding if the profits are down or
is
just the revenues.
what is facing or all the products are facing down the journey.
I'm sorry, I missed your voice, Asta. Can you please repeat? Do you catch it, Srishti? Or
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
she
I
said if yeah,
go on,
sorry.
go on.
Yeah, she said if one of the products are seeing this dip in the revenue, or are all the products seeing that, which is a valid question.
right. So, even as the previous one, that the like, okay, what was the previous? Yeah, it's revenue or cost. So definitely you can ask this here also, but I suggest asking very direct questions that you think are like suggestive answers itself. You can avoid this in the preliminary. You can keep it in a broader spectrum, and because if you identify it's a revenue, you need to break down. So once you break down, it shows that you've thought a lot of things, and then you're identifying why it is. So can have like generic things, but do not throw in suggestive answers in the
Hmm.
preliminary questions directly. So yeah,
You
any
don't.
more?
I think one point on that, and it's a great way to show again your structured thinking to the interviewer. Don't, like Disha said, obviously don't throw in suggestive answers, but still, I mean, you can clarify that this is why I'm asking this question, because this will lead to X, Y, Z. Don't make it too long, of course. Always try to read the person. Always try to understand what kind of a person he is. Does he like direct answer? Does he just like to cut to the point, or is he trying to assess why I'm asking this, etc.? So some people love that, you're asking preliminary questions to, some of them are obvious, you don't need to ask it for all preliminary questions, but if it's a very pointed kind of a question and you have some thought in mind, it's okay to think it out loud and tell them, this is why I think, this is relevant, it's not.
Hmm. Yeah, so just don't ask questions for the structure, but also think logically, is it fitting in that context? Like Eknoor mentioned, they can very genuinely ask, like you ask, okay, why is this company doing? So you can ask, the interviewer can ask you, why is it relevant? And that time you
Hmm.
would have a logical thing, because that time you would just think like, it would show on your face that you're just using a framework and putting in the segmented questions, or you actually have a logic behind why it fits in this context. So yeah, maybe
Yeah.
the, hmm. Anybody has any more preliminary questions that they think they would want to clarify at this stage? Okay, then I think we can move ahead. We can, so considering these are the responses, like how much was the decrease and since when are we observing it? So we know it's a recent phenomena, and you can ask questions about the company. What is the business model? Like you might know few things, you need not ask that, but what are the timings? Is there any like number of employees and all of it? What are the product mix that someone mentioned, one of you all mentioned? That gives you an idea about. You can ask general questions like, what are the sources of revenue? Maybe you could clarify now or also later, whether it's only delivery or it's a dine-in also. And yeah, what are the, you can, there are a few things you might not need to frame it and directly ask like who are the customers, but you can give a suggestive answer to it. I believe this, and you can confirm it. That's a good way to think, show that you're not just throwing on questions, but you're also thinking the answers and confirming it. Yeah. So we can go ahead, I believe. Hmm. So with this approach, looking at the profitability structure, 1 second, I'll try. Hmm. Yeah. So the approach, it could be, as you saw, cost and revenue. You realize that it's a revenue issue. The costs have really stayed the same. Or actually, do you all would want to open your mics, like, or your mics, and say something like what do you all think could be the possible framework if you all have an idea of the context of profitability, or how would we can maybe actually you can suggest, and then maybe I can guide you through what I believe could be put in there. So any of you all would want to like turn on your mics and say how would you want to start the problem? How would you break through it? Okay, I don't anyone. Okay, I'd say I think a lot of people might not even have a lot of context on case solving, so you can just rush through it quickly, so it gives you more time to think about it. Then, with the same structure like you saw, it's just breaking down each of it relevant, and like if it's the customer revenue canteen, it's a revenue issue. Then you break down revenue into the number of orders and the average order value. So you can see it's a mathematical formula. You're not missing out on any step in the structure. And if like the interviewer responses that the average order value has rather increased, but the number of orders have decreased in this case, so you realize that the number of people, uh, then you can maybe suggest also like it is uh, a supply issue or demand issue. Sometimes it's that obviously you can break it down. That I think it's a supply and a demand, we can break it. But since it's a service firm and the demand would like campus students would maybe remain same and could be a supply issue. So should I start with that? So rather than at each step breaking and asking what is it? Is it supply or demand? It's better to give suggestive answers and show that you've thought suggestive responses to it and show that you've thought to it. Then breaking down into what is it, and then you can say like okay, if it's a supply issue, then the supply in the journey of the value chain, first you procure, then I'll prepare and then distribute. Or here you can also add legislative, but in this aromas context legislative doesn't make sense, so we can remove that. And in this framework also feel free to like take things and slice off on your own, saying that this is not relevant here, so you do not spend more time because you want to keep the case at a decently fast pace also, because the interview will have a limited amount of time. And if you take a lot of time just speaking yourself and uh, diving in like giving a lot of context, it might they might not be able to complete the interview and they'll be like okay fine, we'll end it here because that was limited time. And you can also, you can see on the screen, there's not just one approach, there can be multiple approach. Here instead of the number of orders have decreased, I could also break it across the customer journey and see, think of myself as a customer, break down the journey and what could be the further problems. So here it was like a wait time issue because they had just recently started with delivery and one of the person was delivering, so the people in the kitchen decreased and they could not fulfill orders faster. That's why the number of orders decreased. I just rushed through this case. Eknoor, you think you would like to add something?
No, I think it's good. I think all of these guys don't have a lot of context, like you said, and it's completely fine at this stage. You're not expected to either. This is just an example we're giving you just to understand how cases work. But I think we've given you a fair understanding of that. Of course, when you will do these case preps and when you will do it in person with somebody, you'll get a more personalized feedback and you can improve on that. This is just an example, so we'll rush through it.
Hmm. Yeah. So at the end, once you've like solved it, they would like to, you would to summarize the case. They highlight the most important observation, and in maybe a line or three, and like this is the issue that you identified, and recommendations. So get more creative. It can show how much of the depth and breadth you can think of, and suggest recommendations in this case. Yeah. So just to quickly, anybody has like, if as you all know, the root cause here was the delivery में पहले 3 जन किचन में, अब 2 जन हो गए, एक जन डिलीवरी कर रहा है, तो अभी वेट टाइम बढ़ गया है. What do you think could be the possible recommendations that you would give to aromas वाले भैया now कि अब वो क्या कर सकते हैं? Most, there could be most obvious recommendations and the most creative ones. So anyone would like to suggest few? Okay, just finally just rush to like the most obvious, you increase the number of staffs or you create some people process, and or maybe add a delivery fee to compensate for decrease in in-store revenue. These are the kind of recommendations that you can think of. And yeah, so I think you'll get more ideas. Eknoor mentioned once you start doing, we can move ahead.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, thank you for this segment. I think it'll help with case prep a lot once the students start doing it. In the interest of time, let's move on to the Q&A segment right now.
Yeah.
So everyone, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions you might have regarding the case or the interview process, anything in general. You can also drop them in the chat box.
I think we also have some questions that we can quickly cover, and I think we can take it one by one. So the first one I have is from Devesh, where he says, "What matters in the resume the most?" I think we've covered that. There's no one correct answer to it, but it's showcasing your talents, your interests, and being structured to show that you have peaks and you're good at something versus your peers. That is the crux of it. Yeah, Disha, you can take the next one.
I loaded
Devanshu.
this to the chat. So if Shrishti, you could read out the question from the chat, it
Oh,
would
I'll
be
do it. So Devanshu asks, are buddy rounds conducted online or offline?
so. As Eknoor mentioned, it depends on the scenario. If your buddy is in town and he's interested to spend more time and they want to meet, so they might conduct it like offline on campus or near campus somewhere you can meet them. Maybe it's a round is online and then do a case offline. So it just depends on the condition and on your buddy. If you are keen and like you have a contextual conversation, oh, they're also from an IIT, you can say, "Okay, I would really like to meet you," and maybe that's where you meet. It's just how they and you carry on the conversation.
Yeah. And it's not reflective of anything. I mean, don't read into it if the buddy is not able to meet you, etc. It's mostly because of the hectic life that these guys are having and they're probably solving for something else. But yeah, okay. Prashant's next question is: I heard in consulting, we get to travel a lot. How can you elaborate it? Uh, so I think 100% a lot of people come to consulting for that. I mean, I have my current case in Abu Dhabi, so these next 3 months I'm frequenting between India and Abu Dhabi for that. So that's a lot of travel. We went for our training to Malaysia just a few months back. Plus, of course, it's since I'm in private equity practice, so we don't go to the client location a lot. But in general practice at Bain, at least, there's a lot of traveling happening to client locations. So I know people who are going to Lucknow, Gujarat, and everywhere in India, etc. So there is a lot of traveling, and it's basically solving for being in closer proximity to your client. Often working out of the client office because they want to see the results, they want to chat with you on a daily basis. So there's traveling for that. And of course, in your free times, you hence get to explore the city, you get to enjoy things. There are case team events that happen. For an example, what we're planning for now is that one of these weeks we'll be going on a yacht trip in Dubai. So those kind of things are obviously like, I know it sounds very good. It is actually also very good. But it also comes at a cost of doing all the work, and that work can get hectic for sure. So there are goods, there are bads, but the travel is a 100% plus. And if you enjoy traveling, then consulting is a great way to do that. Especially right now because you don't have a lot of attachments, a lot of responsibilities. Once you have a family, once there's a bigger spectrum of commitments that you have to cater to, it might not be possible to travel this much. And of course, I mean, at this age, it is. So I like it. Cool. Vedi asked the next question, Disha, for you. How to get our first intern as we don't have much experience, and for applying at any company's resume is always needed.
Yeah, so it's fine. Like a lot of people, as far as I recall, not many people in our batch had professional experience as a tab.
Hmm.
I had one was I'd done like I was in town. Or people had done some remote experiences, and as an intern, like a startup or just like of while your semester is going, you're doing a remote on work from home basically. So those things, but even if you don't have, it's entirely fine. You will have other things, and it just shows that you utilize your time enough well. Not exactly where, but everywhere you're doing it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I thought this was the crowd who's gonna appear for the internships now, so you might not have a lot of time for now getting an intern and getting it on your resume, anyways. But if you're a younger person here and if you're in your first year, second year, just I mean, it's a very longer answer, honestly, how to get your internships, first internships. Uh, but essentially try to find people, try to find it through connections, try to it's completely fine to find it through family connections also, through friends, etc. And your first internship can be voluntary also or at a lower pay than you're expecting, since it's just like and it can be a shorter term also, but it's just that one starting point which will help get more leverage to get more roles in the future. So I mean, you have to try a lot, you have to apply a lot of places, but at the end of the day, if you can convince them that hey, I can come to your firm and I can contribute without any past experience also, then you should definitely do that. Yeah. think the last question from the chat box. Of course, guys, feel free to also add it to the chat box, but I see hands raised also, so we can do those after this. Just one last question in the chat box is, if we have great achievements in say two sports like volleyball and chess for my case, should I write 2 points for each under sports or make it two columns? Uh, I mean, how you want to structure it, that's okay. You can split it into two columns, etc. But ideally, your peak that I see is sport achievements or even extracurriculars. You can make that the header, but you should cover both. I mean, there's no reason to limit to one. Uh, I don't think you need to necessarily write 2 points for each sport, but you can write a longer point which covers your biggest achievements, like national, international achievements. If they exist, those sell like hotcakes. So you should write those, and even 1 point under each if it's a national, international point, that is in itself complete. But of course, if you want it to take more space and optically solve for it, then you can do that as well. So there's no right answer to that, unless of course, Disha, you have an opinion there.
No, it just means you say, like instead of framing the entire statements, because in these sports you will have like competition, prize, and
Yeah,
definitely part more than participation, the prize is more recognized. So you
yeah,
can just make like a tabular structure with entirety, gold prize, entirety, like second prize,
yeah,
hostilities, first prize, and any of
yeah,
these or some other competition that you believe is recognized. You can put
mm,
in the names and the prize you've got there.
yeah. Agreed. Yeah, cool. I think we're done with questions from the chat box. Oh, okay. No, there are more questions now. But okay, let's go to the people who are asking live first. They've their hands raised for some time.
So I can see Shivam. Shivam, if you can unmute.
Yeah, so I have question like for the case interviews, the like case studies, the prep starts before resume shortlist or after that.
Uh, would you like to take that, Disha? Okay, I'll take it. I think Disha is facing some network issues. Yeah, case interview, you can start obviously before getting those shortlists also. There's like no rule which says it should start after getting shortlist. Because I think how long does it take between do you remember, Disha? I think it's typically 1 week or 2 weeks, right? After the shortlist, you'll have just that amount of time.
I think
Uh,
2 weeks was there.
2 weeks, yeah. So which is honestly, I mean, it's not bad. It's enough if you put in like dedicated efforts. But it's always better, if you're very sure about A, you want to get into consulting, and B, you might have a good shot at getting a shortlist. People do start a little bit early on as well. And I'm saying this, even though I did not, I told you my story. I was not even planning to sit, etc. But Jovi, I mean, it's completely fine to get a head start. It never hurts. And even through this, for example, you've got a kind of a structure on how case interviews are and how is it structured. There are 2 3 standard structures or examples of case preps, and like I said, don't peg to them, but it's completely fine to know them, because it's like a good starting point to understand how things get structured and how structured thinking actually works.
Yeah. Also, just adding to that, definitely there's no like it's not wrong to start if you have time, but it should not be at the cost of your resume. So resume is most important. Get that done thoroughly. Just after putting in, also I think it played a huge role for me getting it reviewed from multiple seniors, peers, alums, and the starting point where I thought it was good enough, and to the point it reached after the multiple reviews, जमीन आसमान का फर्क आ जाता है. So I
Mhm.
think वो तो करना चाहिए. उस पर do not compromise. After that, if you're very confident about resume, you've crossed the resume deadline, then definitely you have time on your hand. You should prep. It's not just for consulting. Even beyond consulting, the guesstimates is something you should start with first. Guesstimates are there for in a lot of other interviews also. So definitely start, but not at the cost of your resume. Hmm. So we can take the next question. I think we have Pavan who has
Pawan.
raised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello. I have a simple question that many students here are complete beginners or new students in this field. So I want to ask from where to start, how to start, like courses, videos, step by step, मतलब like a roadmap. Could you please tell me like this?
So I'll just touch upon what I had done, and Eknoor, maybe you could add. I personally was CIC videos seemed relevant. IIT Bombay Alums के I think, and they was much more structured. So I watched those 4 videos एक एक घंटे का. पहले वो देख लो. उसके बाद start with guesstimates. Those are most logical, mathematical, kind of things, you would have a chart, you would find it. I think Srishti can also help you maybe share the resources. So they'll have the quantitative data, population numbers, care, demographic numbers, what is the kind of percentage splits between things. Have that numbers, know those in mind, like maybe not yaad kar lo, but have a split of things, ki gender splits kya hai and age split kya hai, uh, earnings, income splits kya hai. Know them. So when you're solving the guesstimates, you are using them, and then you do a good set of guesstimates. Once you've done a good set of guesstimates, you have a hang of how it's happening. Maybe you can next shift next to profitability cases, and that way then like maybe market entry and a few of unconventional cases. So does yeah, you could add also maybe
Yeah.
in power.
No, mine was very similar, Disha. I think I started with those CIC videos, and I think videos like that or sessions like this are great ways to firstly get a sense of the land, right? Trying to understand, what is it actually about, because this is not common knowledge, right? You have to know what cases are, how they are asked, how they're structured, what a case interview setup is. So stuff like that you can easily understand through these videos. You might not understand anything in your first video or your first glimpse of it. It's completely fine, but trust me, I mean, they're just very, very fixed kind of problems that are asked, and very quickly you can get an understanding through these videos. And then of course, like I mentioned earlier, also do as many cases as you can with people, and just dive into it directly. So you watch these videos, you get an understanding, and then just catch people from your own batch first, I think, and start solving cases, because that was my approach. At least there were people who had been studying these cases for longer than I was, so I watched these videos and I directly started doing interviews with them. And I sucked, of course. I didn't know anything. After just watching those videos, you cannot just be best at case interviews, right? And but then you quickly understand, because these guys have done their research, and somebody who's already done a few cases, they'll be able to guide you much better. And that sort of a practice, I think, is a great way to directly jump into the water and trying to figure out how to finally get stable.
Also, just to add a quick thing, if you have like time on your hand, because there are a lot of cases available, so definitely keep practicing cases. That helps the most. But also when you're like scrolling around, or you were just watching a video before sleeping, you can watch of these mock interview videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
There are a lot of I think MBA videos, and those, so it gives you idea about how people respond, how people answer, and just broadens the way you can vocabulary you can incorporate also while talking. So yeah,
Okay,
Pawan
thank
does
you.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there are
Okay.
two more questions left in the chat, and in the interest of time, I'll just quickly go over there. I think Ayush's question is already answered: how to prepare different aspects of consulting interviews. And Uditi asks, what kind of cases are most important to prepare, or maybe should be practiced more? Guesstimates, profitability, or market entry, or something else? Again, like I think we mentioned, it can be anything, and ultimately what is being asked to you becomes the most important in your life, right? So you have to be prepared for all of it. But again, once you get a general hang of how to solve cases, you don't have to peg to one of these approaches. You should just display structured thinking, and you should be communicative of how you're trying to solve the problem. And if the person sees you're taking a correct approach, that is what they're looking for. Essentially, in consulting interviews, they're looking for coachable people, and they're looking for people who are, of course, smart, they can communicate well, etc., but also people who, when given the right resources and the right training, they can be coached well, and they can understand very quickly what consulting is and how you solve problems, because that's not a skill you get without practice and without actually getting into the firm. But if you don't show coachability, if you don't show flexibility, if you don't show that you're smart enough to mold according to client demands, etc., stuff like that is being gauged here. So don't stick to any specific case or case type. Start with the easier ones, of course. Guesstimates is one thing a lot of people do. Then profitability is something people start with. Market entry and stuff like that are longer cases which hardly show up, very rare. But again, if it shows up, then that's the most important for you, right? But yeah, Disha, anything you have?
Just to touch upon, I think a very important point, Eknoor mentioned that coachability, and it seems like a word, but how do you display it? So in
Yeah.
these case interviews, they gauge these things like how are you open to what the interviewer is saying. You had a thought कि यार ये तो demand problem होगा and तुम थोड़ा structure वैसे बना रहे हो, but interview is trying to guide you कि no, it's a supply issue, and are you accepting that, acceptive of it, and like trying to mold your structure in a way, or are you on a fixed framework? So that's where it comes important that you're not just learn the frameworks and think यार ये तो ऐसे ही होना चाहिए, नहीं तो फिर you open up a blank face, but you're taking in what the interviewer is saying, trying to mold according and think according to those paths also. So yeah.
Okay, everyone. I think with this, we can start winding up our session for today. Disha and Eknoor, thank you so much for taking out time of your day to be with us today. It was very insightful, and I'm sure everyone learned a lot. If you have any closing remarks for the students, we can go ahead with that.
So yeah, well, glad and thank you all for staying up. I know attending sessions on Sunday is takes up time, but yeah, glad to be here and glad to have these questions and be helpful hopefully. And also, if you want to reach out anything, you can. I'm available on the LinkedIn, and there's I think Srishti can help you with ways to reach out. So feel free to drop anything, and all the best for your resume deadlines and internships. And just remember, you might have things in your mind when you're starting with the internship कि मेरे को तो ये चाहिए यार ये लगता है कि best है, but it's fine. I am definitely sure this journey will be a lot more insightful, and you will turn up to be more conscious, smarter, and much more decisive about what you want by the end of this journey. So it's fine to try out, keep your mind open, do not have things fixated, and be open to learn. Like just sharing an instance, मुझे पता नहीं था BCG होता भी क्या, LE के क्या होता है, Bain क्या होता है, before I got the shortlist, and then I'm like, oh ये shortlist, and then what's the significance, and then I started prepping for it. So yeah, consulting prep is very nice. I think even if irrespective you're in consult or not, but it teaches you to think smart.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, Disha. And my thoughts are also similar. It's a great process to be a part of. It's identifying yourself, and problem solving is a skill any industry, anyways, needs, right? And this entire process of case interviews and preparing for interviews is gonna just help you in whatever you eventually get into. So one thing that I'd say, internships are a great way to get your life sorted early on. If you have a good internship and if you're interested in that, of course, if you like it, only then. But if you like it and you accept the PPO, you perform well in the internships, you can have a relatively freer third year, fourth year, etc. And you'll have more time in hand to explore other options. So I utilized it for a semester exchange, for a startup, etc. So because you're in this space right now, that's why I'm recommending it. Of course, it's not like that's the only option, but that's some motivation for you to take it seriously. Making the best of your opportunity that you have at hand. Sometimes people don't realize the importance of it and take internships very lightly. Definitely do not do that. And like I said, resumes is step one, but it's also the most important step. So start on that. But thank you so much, guys. Thank you, team, of course. The team. I mean, there was difficult to schedule. I think there was a lot of up and down, and then sorry for that. But great job by the SARC team, and hopefully, guys, this was insightful for all of you, and we were able to help you in whatever you were trying to understand. But yeah, happy to help. You guys can reach out on LinkedIn. Yeah, LinkedIn works. But yeah, thank you. All the best.
Thank you again to the both of you. We would now like to conclude the session. Everyone, thank you a lot for being a part of the session. We wish you luck for the upcoming internship seasons.
Thank you, guys. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.